Hi everybody and welcome to me here now at Ravenous Butterflies, and it's really good to see you. So welcome to me, Ravenous Butterflies. We're going to talk about Sri Lanka, where I was born, which is really exciting for me anyway. I hope it's going to be fun for you too. So basically, I was born in the mid 60s in Sri Lanka. My mother went out there and she married my dad within a couple of weeks of being there, and she had a fantastic time. I think it was she was living a life that she'd come from London, and she was living a life which was incredibly different. In those days people just didn't travel, so for her to go from Sri Lanka, having only known my dad for a couple of weeks I think, and then going to live go from London and then going to live in Sri Lanka was quite a big thing, quite an adventurous spirit in there, I have to say. So I've got a few special things here. I just wanted to show you a picture of my mum and dad with me. There we go. So you can see my mum. She was quite a glamour puss. And there's me there as a baby with a sort of bit of a Mohican. And my dad, who was also quite the part. I mean, he looked a little bit like Michael Caine in his younger days, I have to say. And here is my mum again with me, with a real Mohican, but you can see she's got those gorgeous cheekbones, and she was really rather ravishing and rather gorgeous. And I was very proud of her. I mean, she was very beautiful, and I mean, she didn't really have much to say, and she couldn't really answer all of my questions because I was always questioning things, constantly questioning things, asking why is this, why is that. I think I said that yesterday. And because I didn't really see much of my parents, we lived a very kind of, I suppose, a life which was, I was kind of not hidden away, but I wasn't really seen. My dad was a tea taster, and we lived above the factory in a big apartment. It sounds glamorous, but it really wasn't glamorous. I mean, it was literally on the top of this tea factory, so everything smelt of sweet tea leaves, which was absolutely divine and gorgeous. And it's one of those smells now which is really reminiscent of my childhood, which I absolutely love. I mean, if ever I smell a candle that smells of sort of tea candle or something like that, it just makes me go back into when I was little. I didn't really see much of my parents, even though we lived in this apartment. It was quite big. We did have I had a nanny, so I didn't see much of them at all. I don't think my dad got paid very much, but in those days, they had staff, so there was a cook and a driver and a nanny. And my parents probably lived a fantastically idyllic life, not having to really see very much of me, which is a shame because I think that's where I really missed out. But I had the most fantastic Celanese nanny who was Hindu, and she lived with me in my room basically, with a bathroom in the middle separating us. She was like my mama, my mummy, my everything. She was my world, and I absolutely adored her. And I was trying to find some photographs of her today because I do have a whole like a thick wad of pictures, but I couldn't find them. So one day I'll dig them out and you can have a look. But she was lovely. She always used to just wear this gorgeous sari, and she was always very patient with me and just fantastic. She used to take me everywhere. She used to take me to her shrine every day. We'd make a flower garland and we'd put it on the shrine, light a candle, light an incense stick, and I would play very often with the children from the compound where I lived. As you can see, there's this one little chap that was my friend, but he doesn't look very happy, and I don't look very happy with him. But I can remember just having a really kind of idyllic time and running around with no shoes on and just really enjoying myself. This is me at one of my birthday parties. I mean, honestly, I don't like ice cream, and I don't look very happy because I still don't like ice cream. So that's me saying, Mum, Dad, please don't give me ice cream anymore. I really don't want it. One of the things I do remember about spending time with my parents, though, was my dad taught me how to swim. And we belonged to the swimming club because it was so hot in Sri Lanka and very humid. And I mean, the average temperature there is between sort of 28 to sort of 32 degrees. And there's a monsoon season that happens, and that's when the rains break the temperature. But for most of the year, it's incredibly hot, and everything is kind of smells of rotting vegetation, which I love that smell. But I mean, it's because I grew up with it, and the white noise of the whirring fans, and we didn't have air conditioning or anything, so there was just this kind of hot, thick air that was just being pushed around and around the room. and mosquito nets and lots of giant bugs dropping off the ceiling, cockroaches and huge things scurrying around the grass and things. I mean, things you wouldn't really want your child to be playing with or going too near, I have to say. But that was just all part of my growing up. That was all part of who my formative years, I suppose, part of who I was. So here's me and my dad. There's me in the water there at the local swimming club with my mother's foot. Well, on this side, sorry, it's all backwards on the computer. And I learnt to swim when I was, well, I could swim a length of the swimming pool when I was 18 months old, doing doggy paddle. But I really, really, really love swimming. And I think swimming in water has always been a real respite for me because I'm a big person. So it's quite nice to just be weightless in the water, and sort of scuba diving and snorkeling has always been something I've really, really enjoyed. And I think it comes from those kind of Indian Ocean days where I spent my best time in the water, probably an afternoon, 5 times a week, where we would go and swim, or I'd be taken there to swim. And I can remember that the swimming pool at that time was lined in pebble dash, so it was lined in a very, very, very sharp concrete mix with kind of gravel. And I remember I got a scar underneath my chin. And I remember swimming underwater, because underwater was always the best, because you just felt like you were a dolphin or something, or some kind of fish. I remember swimming underwater. I must have been about 4, and I was swimming with my eyes shut because you didn't have goggles in those days. Swimming with my eyes shut, and I just went straight into the wall like that and made this huge amount of blood in the water, which wasn't very nice. I'm sure they all just carried on. And then I got dragged out of the water and I had to go and have a few stitches in my chin. So yeah, that was quite an adventure. I do remember that. But I just loved that life. I mean, I really, really enjoyed it. So Sri Lanka now Sri Lanka then very much as now. It's sort of in South Asia. It's like a teardrop dropping off on the east coast of India into the Indian Ocean. It's got the Maldives down to sort of the southwest, and then it's just clear ocean really. And it is wonderful. I think it's about 75% Ceylonese and 25% Tamil. So there's been a bit of troubles over the years, which has been problematic. It's been a shame, but I'm not going to get into politics. But one of the things that Sri Lanka is really famous, well, there's a couple of things that it's really famous for. One of them is, I don't know if you can see that, elephants. There are lots of elephants in Sri Lanka. Can you see that little elephant? There's an elephant sanctuary, which, in fact, I've got a photograph here from when I went back from my honeymoon. There's an elephant sanctuary, which is very well known in Sri Lanka. And they have lots of gorgeous elephants and baby elephants. It's really wonderful if you ever go there to visit. It's fantastic. So it's very famous for its elephants. It's very famous for candy, which is where there's a big lake, sort of up, slightly sort of north to mid Sri Lanka. And there's a fantastic temple there called the Elephant of the Tooth. And it is quite a sacred place, and it's very beautiful, and there's amazing botanical gardens. I mean, the vegetation there is fantastic. Things just grow literally on trees, but they really do. I mean, you can just stick something in the ground and it will grow. Tropical fruits, vegetables, all sorts of things, absolutely delicious. Orchids, beautiful flowers. I mean, when I came to England, it was just such a shock to the system when, we were surrounded by such lush tropical vegetation. It couldn't have been more different. Also, in Sri Lanka, there are lots of Moors, because there was a silk trade and the tea trade and spice trade that happened with the East India Company, and prior to that with the dhows that used to go over to various places within the sort of near Middle East and India and stuff, and obviously with China. And so we also have in Sri Lanka. There are also the burgers, not the burgers that we know them, not the cheeseburgers or anything like that. The burgers which were the Dutch and the Portuguese who came and settled there. So there's a strong influence of that part of Europe really. So that's really interesting, because they brought their different types of food, different types of religious practices, different culture. So that mingled in with the Ceylonese as well. So basically they're mostly known for their cricket, and they're also known because they're very good at cricket, and they're also known for, more recently, movies. I mean, there were some fantastic films filmed there. So Bridge Over the River Kwai was filmed there. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was filmed there. So if you think back to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, if you've seen it, then you'll get a general picture about what the kind of topography is, what the landscape is there. You know, in some parts of the country, you've got these incredible mountains and highlands. Then you've got the lowlands, the jungle. You've got the beach. It's just a fantastic country. And when I was young, because my dad was in the tea trade, we used to go up into the hill country when it was really, really hot before the monsoon, when things just got really unbearable, and we'd go up there and we'd just escape the heat. So you can, if you think back to sort of Indiana Jones, and you can see some of the mad stuff that was going on in those rocky mountains and jungle and things, you'll understand sort of where I was raised, really. Then Elephant Walk, which I don't know if you've seen that, but I remember watching that when I was younger, when all these elephants just keep stampeding through the jungle and countryside and go through this house, very colonial house, which was quite interesting. And the second Jungle Book was filmed there as well. Obviously, Rudyard Kipling's story was then remade. I sort of have vague memories of watching the original Jungle Book, the cartoon version, before I came back to England in the late 60s. I have a vague recollection of watching it on a open air cinema screen, but that might just be total fantasy because that's sort of what I imagine I would have been doing, watching Jungle Book literally on the outskirts of the jungle. But it was a fantastic place to grow up, and other people have been raised there as well. Michael Ondaatje, who wrote the English Patient, he's now been neutralised, I think that's how you say it, naturalised in Canada. He's now a Canadian citizen. But he is one of my favourite writers and poets, and I'm going to read to you now a poem that he wrote, which I suppose sums up a lot of the sort of lovely sensuality of Sri Lanka and what it brings to your senses as you know you can't get rid of it. It's sort of imprinted in your soul, really. So I'm going to just read this poem to you before I show you the rest of my booty that I've got sitting next to me that I want to show you and share with you. It's called The Cinnamon Peeler. It's by Michael Ondaatje. If I were a cinnamon peeler, I would ride your bed and leave the yellow bark dust on your pillow. Your breasts and shoulders would reek. You could never walk through the markets without the profession of my fingers floating over you. The blind would stumble, certain of whom they approached, though you might bathe under rain gutters, monsoon. Here on the upper thigh at this smooth pasture, neighbour to your hair, or the crease that cuts your back, this ankle, you will be known among strangers as the cinnamon peeler's wife. I could hardly glance at you before marriage, never touch you, your keen-nosed mother, your rough brothers. I buried my hands in saffron, disguised them over smoking tar, helped the honey-gatherers. When we swam once, I touched you in the water, and our bodies remained free. You could hold me and be blind of smell. You climbed the bank and said, "This is how you touch other women, the grass cutter's wife, the lime burner's daughter." And you searched your arms for the missing perfume, and knew, what good is it to be the lime burner's daughter, left with no trace, as if not spoken to in the act of love, as if wounded without the pleasure of a scar. You touched your belly to my hands in the dry air and said, "I am the cinnamon peeler's wife. Smell me." It kind of says it all, really, because when I went back to Sri Lanka, when I got married and I went back for my honeymoon, I came off the plane and the smell is just, you can cut it with a knife. It's so evocative. It's so awakening of all the senses and of all the spirit that you have. It just brings you alive. And even though it's hot and as humid as it will ever be, it's always absolutely just, you can't get rid of it. It stays with you. It becomes part of you. It imprints in your soul, basically. So now, what of Sri Lankan cuisine? Now as we move through into the next part of my Sri Lankan journey. Well, the food is spectacular. It's so, so good. So I did print off a few photographs because, as I said, I couldn't find my pictures. So I printed off a few things, and the thing which is really synonymous with Sri Lanka are the hoppers. So there are two types of hoppers. Hoppers are made from sort of fermented rice flour, and they are almost, if you can imagine, like a vermicelli, a white sort of vermicelli, and then they're steamed. So they sort of look like, I'm going to show you this. Can you see that sort of down here? I don't know if you can see that, but they sort of look like that. Those are hoppers, and they actually make a little, sort of almost like a little bowl. So you've got this crunchy sort of fermented rice flour, and then a little ricey bowl underneath. And sometimes you crack an egg and put it in there, like a fried egg. And then when you get your delicious sort of shrimp curry or your crab curry or chicken curry, which is very much kind of coconut based because they use a lot of coconut, so it's very runny and very delicious. Very hot. They use an awful lot of chili and spices. Obviously, with the cinnamon peeler there, you know that they're part of the spice route, so their spices are very well known and very kind of famous throughout the world. Very high quality spices. So you have this little bowl which is the hopper, and maybe with an egg in the middle if it's an egg hopper. You get the hot curry, liquid curry, and you pour it in and you mix it all around. And then you add these things called sambals. So sambal, like that, is grated coconut, could be chopped up with chili. You could have a sambal which has got onions, lots of onions and chilies and herbs and spices. Sometimes they use like a green banana and make it into a sambal. And you add all these different things to your dish. So you might end up with something that looks a little bit like that. So with your hoppers, you'll have lots and lots of different dishes, which are all very small, but they're sort of like a little mezzi or a little sort of, I don't know, like a tapas of delicious flavours that are all super fresh, and some chutneys and things. And all of the people that have come to Sri Lanka on their routes through travelling have brought their various different things. So there's a hint of Indonesia. There's a hint of, like I said, the burgers from Portugal and from Holland. So the Holland and the Dutch influence from Indonesia, they brought that as well. So they've all brought things which have been amazing, and you can see these like things could be wrapped in banana leaves, and it's just absolutely delicious. And Sri Lanka, they use an awful lot of coconut. So so everything is super spicy, very kind of coconut saucy, but quite thin coconut. So it's not rich and thick. It's very light. And very chili hot, so it's absolutely delicious. So I really encourage you to go to a Sri Lankan restaurant if you haven't been. String hoppers are a bit like the hoppers, which make the kind of little bowl thing, but string hoppers are more like a kind of vermicelli. If you imagine like a white sort of very fine pasta but made from rice, and kind of like a rice noodle or something, and they're made into little kind of little rounds, and they're sort of all kind of wiggly, higgly, piggly, wiggly, and then you put those, and that's basically goes into the bottom of your bowl, and then you pour again the sauces and the delicious curries on top of that. So it's so good, and it's absolutely delicious. And the other things that, I mean, we didn't have any puddings or sweets when I was growing up, so I don't really have any recollection apart from rum baba, which was not very traditional at all. We just didn't have any sweets and stuff, so I'm just having a look to see if there's anything else that I've missed on my notes here, because I think jaggery is one thing which people did have, which I don't like. It's kind of sweet, and they used to make it into a pudding, which was like junket, which is a bit like a blancmange, which I really didn't like. So I just avoided all those sorts of things really at all costs. But everything else, it's absolutely delicious. And they used to have arak. So arak, obviously I didn't have that because I was little, but arak is a sort of alcohol. I think it's made from coconut, palm sugar, I think. Palm sugar maybe, palm sugar and coconut, I'm not sure, sugar beet, something like that. But we didn't have any sweets, so I remember coming back to England and lots of my friends had fillings and things, but because we had fluoride in our water, because it was kind of, it wasn't great, the water, but we had fluoride in it to help kind of clean it. And I didn't have any sweets. I've only got like one filling, and I'm almost 60, so that was pretty good. And I used to remember going to the market with my nanny actually, and the cook. And I don't know what my mum was doing. She was probably doing something, I don't know what, socialising or something. And we go to the market, and I'd be standing there, and when you're really little and everything looks really huge, and really, really big. Well, I would be looking at like the meat stand in the boiling hot, sort of hot heat. Everything is just covered in flies and stuff, but nobody seemed to bother too much. I mean, most of the time they would cook with fish, or salt fish was a big thing, like and also mutton. So if it's something like mutton, it's going to cook for hours and hours with lots of chili, and nobody would ever notice that it had been sitting outside in the midday sun with lots of flies on it. So yeah, interesting. So when I was, I don't know, 3 years old, I don't know if you can see that. When I was 3 years old, that was the first time that my mum, she was pregnant with my brother. I was almost three. She was pregnant with my brother, and we left Sri Lanka and we went on the boat to go back to England. Now, my dad was supposed to go on the boat. You can see King Neptune. Where is he? Here. King Neptune. And the mermaids, obviously, over here. That's me. And we went on this big boat, and my dad at the last minute, he couldn't come because his company wanted him to stay where he was, which was very often the case in those days. I don't think they really took family considerations into view. And we went on this boat, and there was me. My mum was pregnant. She was really sick and not having a good time. And I was a toddler, and I was running around, and this huge boat, ocean liner thing. And I was running around, and I think Mum stuck me in the creche, and she got invited to the captain's table for dinner one evening. This is a story that she told me. She stuck me in the creche, and off she went for dinner. And then about half an hour, 45 minutes later, I appear in my nappy, in my diaper, and little top, because it was really hot, on my own. I'd gone apparently up like two flights of stairs onto the main deck of this ocean liner. I mean, imagine if I'd fallen off the edge. Nobody would have known where I was. I wouldn't have been sitting here tonight, which some of you might be quite pleased about, but I wouldn't have been pleased about. And I walked into the dining room, and there she was, apparently, my mum, sitting there at the captain's table having dinner with a load of other people, and I walked in my diaper, in my nappy, and my little whatever it was, and I walked in, and my mum was absolutely horrified. And so I don't think she kept her eyes off me after that, which was probably a good thing. I don't know if she'd actually realised that with young little ones, you probably ought to pay a bit more attention to what's going on. Although I was in the creche, so she says. She didn't just keep me in her room or anything, in her cabin. I was supposedly in the creche, so they should have kept an eye on me, I suppose. But anyway, I'm here now and I'm safe. So when we got here, we had a few things which I really coveted, and I've kept them all my life, and I'm going to give them to my children because they're really just something that I always remember seeing around the place when I was growing up, and they're really quite interesting. One of them is this, which I don't know if any of you know what this is. It's a little bit broken. I need to fix it, but I don't know if any of you know what this is. If you do, then put your answer in the comments box. But there you go. You've got one chance to tell me what you think this is. It's made of brass and copper, and it should open, so that it should close here like this, and it should close there, and then it opens like that. But you can see there's a little broken bit inside, but you can see it's very, very well used. And can you see that it's got like, okay, if I can move it over here because it's all backwards. You see it's very much got a limey top to it, which has been, obviously it's very old. It's probably a couple of 100 years old. And then in here is the broken bit, which I will try and get someone to fix. In here it's very worn, so you can see that somebody has just been going like this with it. Something that's been in here. Now this would go on your belt, and you would wear it, and inside there you would make your betel nut. Now betel nut is basically, it's a drug. It's illegal, and very, very bad for you, and it's something that has been used traditionally through generations, and it's not something that you should use. And it's basically betel nut, which is a nut, and it's bashed down with some lime, and then it's put into a leaf. And in the olden days, and certainly now as well, people do chew it, and it makes their gums and their mouth go red, and there's a very high incidence of cancer because of it. So it's not a great thing to do, and I would not recommend it to anybody. But it's really interesting, and I really love that. And then the other thing I've got is this, which I've had again in the family for years and years and years, and it's brass, and this has got like a hen or a cockerel on top. And oh, I can't open it because my hand's really bad. But you open this, basically it unscrews. But my arthritis is quite bad. It unscrews, and inside there is where you make kohl. You make the black eyeliner for your eyes, and that's something that would have been used to make the kohl and apply the kohl onto people's eyes to make them stand out. So that's another thing which I really love. And then finally, I'm going to show you this. Now I've got several boxes. This is one of my favourites. Don't know if you can see it. Can you see that? It's really old. It's probably, again, over 100 years old. And it's made from ebony and bone or something like that. And it's also made from porcupine kind of spikes. And can you see there's an elephant there? And it says Ceylon, and that was what it was called back in the day when I was born, before it got independence in 1972 or 1973, I think. And in there I keep some of my special things, but they're out of there at the moment. But I absolutely love that. I've got a couple of those porcupine boxes, and they are really, really gorgeous. Rima Murphy's asking me, is it like tobacco, the betel nut? It is like chewing tobacco, which is absolutely disgusting, except it's a lot worse because it's kind of it's a bit like cacao when people in the Andes and the Amazon and places chew cacao, and it keeps them going. You know, if they're having to carry lots of heavy bags through the mountains or something, it's got those sorts of brain enhancing sort of. I don't think it's psychedelic, but it's definitely got something going on there, which I wouldn't try it. But the worst thing about it, a bit like chewing tobacco, Rima, is that it gives you esophagus cancer, it can give you mouth and throat cancer, and it's really, really disgusting because it rots your gums, and your teeth and everything go red, and you spit out this horrible red stuff. It's not very nice, but it's something that I know a lot of the Asian kind of countries, especially places like Sri Lanka, have traditionally done. I think just to sort of keep them going, staves off hunger, things like that. And it's just not very nice, but I like the actual thing itself. No, Ruth, it's not an oil lamp. This one is for applying the kohl. So this unscrews, and then you have like a long stick, and you apply your makeup. So yeah, it's really lovely. I've got some other really nice little bits and pieces. I mean, they're very simple things, but they're things which mean a lot to me. And I've seen them in my home, my parents' home, and my home for a very long time, and they kind of remind me really of my childhood. But yeah. So let me just have a look through the comments and see if there's anything else that I can answer for you, really. Oh, good. Fadomush Fatima says that they're going to go to a Sri Lankan restaurant. You must go. The food is so good, and just try everything. Just ask them for a sort of a delicious sample of everything, because you know, get them to recommend some stuff, because if you don't know what you're going to eat, then get them to recommend some traditional things, but definitely go for the egg hoppers and the string hoppers and some of the really delicious sambals and curries. Absolutely delicious. So, is there anything, questions here? Yeah, Mary Elizabeth says that the water and ocean are very calming. I mean, I love the ocean. Look, here's a really funny photograph of Christmas in Sri Lanka. Look, it's Father Christmas, I don't know if you can see, arriving on a boat onto the beach with his gifts for Christmas. I mean, it's just mad. But it was really, really, very beautiful to grow up in a place where you've got, these amazing sunsets, and every day, because it's right almost on the equator, the sun would set at sort of 6 o'clock in the evening, 6:30. Whereas here in England, it's now 8 o'clock, and it's sort of like it's a grey day outside, but it's still bright. Sun won't set until 8:30, 8:45, and it won't get dark till later than that. And look, can you see? I don't know if you can see, but look, if I bring it over here, there's an elephant. I mean, everything goes. I mean, elephants crossing the road. I mean, I presume that elephant's pushing along that huge log at the side of the road, but seriously, I mean, can you imagine in the West having an elephant crossing the road with carrying things, helping people with their farming or with their lumber work or whatever it is? I mean, it's just crazy. It was really, really amazing to be part of that, really, and I just loved it. I was always at my happiest. There's one of me with the only ever perm I ever had when I was a teenager or late teens, and me sitting there in my usual kind of Sri Lankan or Indian type of clothes and absolutely loving it. And then when I came to England, well, this was earlier than that, but look, the Queen's Silver Jubilee, and it was a hat competition. And I just remember thinking, this place, England, is just completely crazy. Why are people like that? Why is everything like that? I always felt like a bit of an outsider, but yeah. Yeah, Graciela says that Bolivian people chew cacao leaves and it gives them energy because it's extremely exhausting work. And yes, that's why they do it in Sri Lanka, and they do it in lots of other places as well. Lots of countries in sort of Indonesia, so Papua New Guinea and other places, they have the same. They do the same thing. It's not great, but I suppose it's how they get through. So, but it's definitely not to be recommended. I just wanted to throw out if anybody's got any other questions while I'm here, because I'm going to be stopping this very soon. And if anybody has any other questions while I'm here, then please do ask me now, because you've got a couple of minutes to do that. So just let me know if there's anything you would like to know before I go, and I will answer. But I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that you have learned a little something. And yes, you do go and try the food, and you do enjoy learning a little bit about another culture. And next time we'll talk about something else. So if you have any ideas about what you'd like me to discuss, then please do let me know. And in the meantime, I'm going to end now. But in the meantime, if you have any other questions, please, you can always inbox me, or you can send me a message. And any ideas or anything you'd like me to talk about or discuss, do please let me know, because it'd be wonderful to be able to accommodate your ideas as well. Because this is a two-way street and I'm here for you. So I hope you enjoyed that. And I really wish all of you a fantastic evening. And just let me know what you would like me to talk about. And lots and lots of love. And thank you so much for all your support. And have a lovely, lovely night. Good night. Bye-bye. And don't forget, go to Sri Lanka, or go and have a look online and see what there is there, because there's an awful lot of things that you'll discover that I couldn't even go anywhere near it. But huge love and big kiss to everyone. Take care. Have a fantastic weekend. And I hopefully see you next week again. Bye bye.